substance around. It's not that new, actually. And I just say, just don't do it. This is digital rights management. So, joking aside here, this is obviously terribly important, but there are some, some very, very important parameters that need to be known and understood about this environment. So, and again, without going into too much technical detail, so I wanted to say, well, look, let's remember why we're doing this in the first place. Obviously, to prevent copying. You can enforce download limits with content. You can enforce device limits with content, so you're locking it down to a device. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's possible with the technology, and there are certain applications which fit with that kind of model. You can have time-limited content. Obviously, you can implement the kind of library model with DRM, where you can check out a book for 3 days, and then it's no longer a book, it's just a useless file on your drive, and the book is logically checked back into the library again. It lets you withdraw content as well. Now, there was a minor blip of unpopularity with Amazon when they withdrew content a little while ago that was already, people had already purchased, that was already on their devices. The technology, is there behind the scenes enabling all of these different purposes. Why would we care about all of that? Well, clearly, if we're wanting to be well informed about the tech choices that we're making in building content platforms, then we need to know and understand these things. One of the other points that a speaker made in the presentation about DAISY earlier on was just how important some of these different, and this goes back to content as well, and some of these different technologies are for disabled access, and in particular how DRM actually virtually disables any kind of disabled access at all. So, this kind of screen reader technology and DRM simply do not play together well at all. So one of the other points that's worth making is about, well, how is this actually achieved? And there are there are two paths you can go down with the how is it achieved technically, without wanting to spend too much time on this again either, but it's an important thing to think about. You either encrypt the files, you encrypt PDF files, or you encrypt EPUB files, and then you send them off to wherever they're going. Or you take the Google approach, and you basically never send people the files really at all, unless you absolutely have to, and you store them in the cloud instead. And that's actually quite a different approach to DRM. And again, it has consequences for what happens if that service is withdrawn and so on down the line. So specific DRM technologies worth thinking briefly about this. This is what powers Adobe Adept, is what powers their digital editions. So this is the software that's actually going into a lot of the e-reader, a lot but not all, because it doesn't go into Kindle. That's Adobe Digital Editions. It also powers the NOC as well. The same DRM technologies powering that. Adobe had, and still do, another DRM product, which isn't as well known. It's called LiveCycle, but this one powers DRM that downloads into some software which everybody is very familiar with, which is the Adobe Reader. Now, I'll come on to the digital editions versus Adobe Reader debate in the next slide. Apple have their own technology. It's kind of getting a bit of a pattern here. Everybody has their own different proprietary DRM standard. And it's actually, I think it's disingenuous to say that they're open standards. They simply aren't open standards. So I'm sorry if the chap from Google's in the room, but Adobe DRM is not an open standard. It's absolutely, totally locked down by Adobe. And they're the only ones that, unless they've done a special deal with Google, will ever have any control over that. Obviously, Apple's system plays into Apple's devices and Apple's devices only. Amazon, again, have their own system which plays onto the Kindle. So there's a huge variety of different DRM technology, and this is just the big ones. There's a long tail of tiny sort of also-rans as well in the market, and probably some other major ones that I should have mentioned that I haven't. But I wanted to talk now about the Adobe Digital Editions for a moment, because this is the end result of where Adobe have ended up with their DRM. Obviously, as I said, it's implemented on a lot of those e-ink devices, those devices, generally speaking, are easy to use. There's nothing too complex about them. This product, which how many people have downloaded this? Okay, a few. So I think it's a basket case, I'm sorry, but it's an awful piece of software. It's not, you know, nobody in their right mind would want to read ebooks on this on their desktop PC. It's simply not, you know, it's simply not fit for purpose. And one of the things that I don't understand is why Adobe had a digital rights management system that and this is an implication for publishers as well. So this is you know, if you're selling content, and not everybody here is, but a certain number of you will be, into institutions where there are, you know, maybe this is library sales, for example, where there's a huge installed base of Adobe Reader for reading PDF files. You don't want to be telling all of your customers that they've suddenly got to download Adobe Digital Editions, which, as I say, is not a great product. There's no way that they're going to say, okay, I'm going to upgrade my 10,000 terminals to this. I'll just press a button, it happens, and then we can buy your product. It's a no-go. It's a no-go. You need to be targeting the technology that they've got already, which is browser technology and Adobe Reader. And if you go outside of that, then you're instantly creating a barrier to the market for yourself. So, you know, this is the problem that we face at the moment with the Adobe technology. It's well designed for e-ink devices, but for those who are looking at other markets outside, so outside that kind of direct-to-consumer market, maybe into institutional sales, professional sales, we've got a problem there because the technology requires us to download desktop software, which is a no-go in the first place, and secondly, it's awful. So they've somehow forgone the huge installed base that the Adobe Reader software gave them, even though that enabled DRM, and moved on to something much worse. I simply don't understand that. So, you know, this is what happens, unfortunately, you know, this is what happens in the music industry, you know, with digital rights management. You know, nobody liked it, and you know, it was enforced to death, you know, which enabled, obviously, Apple to grow hugely. And finally, of course, you know, they don't need it anymore because Apple already took away the disaggregated everybody else in the business, and now they've removed the DRM from their system. So, you know, there are lessons, there are parallels in that industry. If we lock up our content too tight, too hard, then you know, it may well, you know, cause shifts in the ecosystem which are not desirable effects. And again, I'd point to the O'Reilly example from the keynote this morning about actually letting users pay more and then having an unlocked version which they can take away with them, which they know isn't going to disappear overnight. It's not going to whiff off into the cloud and never be seen again, nor is it going to be controlled by some sort of DRM, which again suddenly renders it inaccessible on any device that they might buy in the future. So the final parting shot on the DRM picture is, you know, and it's that, you know, these technologies have all been cracked. They've all been cracked open by people with, you know, many hours to spend burning candles in their bedroom, kind of working out how to undo the encryption. So, you know, you can go and search on Google and find out how to unencrypt your Kindle DRM and how to unencrypt the Apple stuff too. So it's you know, there's a continuous arms race going on there where it's a war that can't be won effectively. Okay, so let's crack on a little bit. I just wanted to, first of all, just reorientate ourselves and you know, ask a couple of questions. You know, well, what is an ebook? Is it the device or the file you download? If the device is a reader, then who is this chap? Does anybody know who he is? It's Jeff Bezos, who obviously runs Amazon. And I wanted to kind of address this sort of ebook question once and for all, because, you know, if we're looking at choices in content delivery, then there is a choice there for publishers, which is the ebook route. Okay, and you know, before we get onto the more exciting world of apps, that, you know, ebooks are a choice. You know, we can prepare content as PDF files or EPUB. We can do a deal with Amazon or one of the other big silos, one of the other big aggregators, be it Apple, be it NetLibrary, be it Dawson. You know, and bingo, we've suddenly disintermediated the supply chain. And is that it? I wanted to ask. Well, actually, I don't think it is it, because I think that PDFs are boring. Okay, you know, it might be the cheapest form of getting e-content to market, but it's also the most boring, and it's the least accessible. EPUB is obviously a lot more accessible. It's a lot more interesting because we can do much more clever things with it. We can reflow it to fit on different sized devices. We can make the text larger. The problem that, in a way, both of these formats have is that, you know, in the academic environment anyway, is that, you know, we can cite them, we can talk about books that are written in ebook